Hello and welcome back to another episode of Heilman and Haver in the Mix. As you can see, we're back at the beautiful Bay Street Bistro right downtown here in Port Orchard, Washington. And we're here to celebrate another iconic film with another iconic cocktail. This week, on Sunday the 25th, the Bay Street Bistro is going to be having a special Sunday supper menu dedicated to the 2006 James Bond film,
Casino Royale.
Casino Royale, based upon the first book by Ian Fleming, written in 1953, by the same name, Casino Royale. We got a special menu we're going to be previewing for you here in a few minutes, but first and foremost, we're going to talk about the cocktail that we'll be making and that they'll be serving on Sunday the 25th as part of their Sunday supper, the Vesper Martini. Now, this is known as the official Bond Martini, and although we're missing some original ingredients that are no longer manufactured, we're going to get as damn close as we possibly can. But first, let's give you some context. Reading from Chapter 7 of Casino Royale, "A dry martini," he said, "in a deep champagne goblet. Oui, monsieur. Just a moment. 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, generic.
Must not care about what kind of vodka.
Well, we'll find out in a minute. Half a measure of quinoa lillet, which is the ingredient we'll be substituting tonight. Shake it well until it's ice cold, then add a thin slice of lemon peel. Got it? Certainly, monsieur." The barman seemed pleased with the idea. "Gosh, that's certainly a drink," said Felix Leiter. Bond laughed. "When I'm concentrating," he explained, "I never have more than 1 drink before dinner, but I do like that one to be large and very strong and very cold and very well made. I hate small portions of anything, particularly when they taste bad. This drink's my own invention. I'm going to patent it when I can think of a good name." And we'll talk about why he called it the Vesper Martini. But first, let's find out how it's made.
Yeah, so let's talk about, first of all, Bond was very specific in the ingredients and the amounts. It's all about ratios. So, 3 parts Gordon's gin, very specific. 1 part vodka, which, other than not wanting potato vodka.
Right, yeah. You read further on in the chapter, he's specific. Make it out of grain instead of potatoes.
Yeah,
it tastes
so it
better.
wasn't very specific there. But the big one is the Lillet Blanc, or quinoa lillet at that point. So a little history on that. So that was created in 1895 as an aperitif. And this whole drink is considered an aperitif as a result. The original version, quinoa, had a decent amount of quinine in it, along with wine and kind of a mix of fruity liqueurs. Over the years, the company released a couple of different versions. Released a dry version. Then this version, they eventually took the quinoa out of, which is interesting. At the time of the writing of the book, it would have just been called lillet,
right,
and not quinoa lillet. So there's some different versions, and over the years, they've taken the quinine out. This is the closest version of what you can get to what he had listed in the book. It's a little fruitier, less quinine, so it's not as bitter.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a sweeter drink.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and the quinine issue that I think it was Kingsley Amis in his book, or the Book of Bond, said that there's no way this would have been the drink because it would have been too bitter.
Right.
But I think you and I can attest to kind of taste is in the eye of the beholder. We made the Jerry Lewis cocktail,
yeah,
the Alaskan Polar Bear heater with vinegar and everything else in the kitchen sink.
We made 2.
And it wasn't bad. So. Yeah. I mean, quinine's the main thing in tonic water.
Well, he references in the book, if it's going to taste kind of bad, I want it strong, I want it cold, and I want it big.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what he was referring to. That quinine's a little bitter.
Yeah. So we've got we don't have the champagne glasses. We've got martini glasses.
Those are nice and deep.
Yeah, and there's the debate over whether martini should be shaken or stirred. Most mixologists and bar people will tell you never shake a martini. Ice chips, it dilutes it. You should always stir a martini. So, as a result, Mr. Bond over here, Matt, we're going to shake his,
yeah,
and I'm going to stir mine. So we're going to make both. So, using the ratios, I'm going to double them up. These are deep glasses.
Sounds good.
To drink only 1 drink. We're going to make
only one, but we'll get more entertaining as the drink goes down.
All right. So I'm going to start with the Gordon. So 3 parts of that. So. I'm going to put in a boatload of this. So we're going to do 6 ounces of this. And we're shaking yours, so we'll put this in here. That's 4. Somewhere there's an ounce.
And Gordon's is an English gin, correct?
It is. It is listed as the most international gin.
Okay, well, international man of mystery, Mr. Bond.
Yep.
Or is that Austin Powers? I get him confused quite regularly.
So then we're going to do 2 ounces of the vodka. And then we're going to do 1 ounce of the Lillet Blanc.
So a 3-1-1.
3-1 half.
3-1 half.
All right. So I'm going to find my handy shaker thingy.
I'm going to back up.
Give it a good shake. Get all those ice chips in there.
That's what I like. I like the ice chips floating on the top.
And dilute the damn drink.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Pretty sizable pour for you.
Yep.
All right. And I'm going to do the same thing.
I'll be a gentleman and wait.
No, you don't have to do that. So
I'm going to smell it.
I'm not going to accuse any of
It was
us of
mighty
being
pretty.
Gentlemen.
Smells good.
All right, so just going backwards here.
Definitely some fruit aroma in there.
So how does it taste compared to your average martini?
Oh, well, I've just smelled it so far. Can't drink it until we've officially cheers to Mr. Bond.
All right. I'm probably being a little more generous here with mine, so let's get. Okay. My stirring spoon.
And of course, when you come down on Sunday, again, the 25th of April, the cocktails will be made by the lovely and talented Carla here at the Bay Street Bistro. Literally the best old-fashioned I've ever tasted came from her. I think the first time we met down here at the Bay Street Bistro. Fantastic. She is truly talented.
See, look at this. This is clear. Yours is all frosty.
Yeah. It's like smoke out of the barrel of a gun.
But it's largely the same.
We should have a sip down here.
Well,
then we're going to head up to the
here,
VIP room and talk about some trivia, and we'll talk about the menu that they have planned for Sunday. But cheers to 007. Ooh.
It's got a nice evolution to it.
Yeah. Yep.
As you pick up that fruitiness at the end.
I don't know that I would care for quinine in that, honestly. That would be quite bitter.
Yeah, because not only
Or
did
give it another taste.
they remove the quinine or lessen the quinine, it's like a little bit in it. They've increased the fruitiness of it. So
There's definitely a
they've
fruity
done-
aftertaste, yeah. And the finish is nice. I think mine looks cooler. That could be water for all we know.
That's true.
You can fool all your opponents around the poker table.
That's right.
All right, well, we'll get to more of that here in just a few minutes. So join us up in the VIP room here at the Bay Street Bistro, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, cheers. And welcome back to Heilman and Haver. This is our special episode about Casino Royale, the 2006 Bond film featuring Daniel Craig. The first installment of the Daniel Craig series of films. There's been 4 so far, with a 5th due, I think, October of this year.
Yeah, it's been pushed back from COVID, but yeah, looking forward to that one. That's his last?
Yeah, that's what we hear, his last film. And in honor of Casino Royale and the whole Bond dynasty, really, we decided to make the Vesper Martini, which is the classic martini from not only Casino Royale, the book from 1953, the original story by Ian Fleming, but also featured in and very accurately described, I think, in the 2006 film. Mm-hmm. Daniel Craig sitting at the poker table and orders this cocktail. Now, the grand debate has always been shaken versus stirred. Now, Bond orders his shaken. Shaking generally dilutes, it cools, and it aerates, I suppose. And
yours has settled down.
Mine has. Yours. It's hard to tell them apart, although there's still a few little bubbles along the edges of the martini glasses. And I like a martini very cold. I was taught to make martinis extremely cold as possible. In fact, throw it out if it doesn't have little chips of ice on the surface. Greg argues that it dilutes the alcohol and thereby the flavor. And this is gonna be the eternal debate, really. I think for martini drinkers.
Yeah.
I'm not generally a martini drinker, but I do enjoy this one.
This is the Die Hard as a Christmas movie debate
Right?
for martini drinkers.
Is it Christmas? Is it not?
Yeah.
Shaken versus stirred. Well, cheers one way or the other.
Way,
Yep.
I think the ingredients in this give it a good kind of a more complex flavor than your ordinary martini.
Yeah, and you said it was a 3-1/2 ratio, so 3 parts Gordon's gin, which is specific in the book and the film, and then vodka, generic vodka, preferably a grain vodka versus a potato vodka. If you read Chapter 7 of Casino Royale, you can find the paragraphs where Bond orders the drink, and he goes on to talk about, this would be a lot better if it was made out of grain. So maybe I might have been a stab at the Russians, I think, at that point, considering.
Well, you're kind of the Bond aficionado between us. You've read a ton of the books.
Yep. I'm a collector. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a difference, right, between
there is.
The Bond in the books and the Bond in the movies.
Yeah, there is, and the debate is always going to rage around who is the best Bond. And in fact, that kind of takes us into our trivia tonight. A lot of Bond fans feel that Daniel Craig is the most authentic. And based on the way the character is described in the book, gritty, somewhat hard-nosed spy, rather than the suave, tuxedoed, quick with a one-liner like Connery and Dalton. I think a lot of it comes down to who you grew up with. We talked about this on the drive over to the bistro here, and you grew up with.
I grew up with Roger Moore.
With Roger Moore,
yeah.
And see, I grew up with Brosnan, and Goldeneye is still my favorite Bond movie. It was a fantastic Nintendo 64 game. Just mind-blowing when I, being that age. So Brosnan was always, and that was also the introduction of Judi Dench as M, which I really like. I think she's a fantastic character. And she carried, interestingly enough, through into the Daniel Craig era as well.
Yeah, through Skyfall.
Yes, through Skyfall, right. But Ian Fleming, interestingly enough, wanted the character based on himself as far as looks, and a guy some people might have heard of, a singer from back in the day named Hoagie Carmichael. Vesper Lind, the original Bond girl, who is the namesake of this drink, the Vesper Martini, in fact, comments in Casino Royale, boy, that guy looks a lot like Hoagie Carmichael. So, and when Fleming wrote the character, he explained that he wanted the character to be Bond. In fact, he chose the name to sound as dull as possible. He wanted the character to be dull, an interesting guy who things kind of just happen to, and he wanted him to be a blunt instrument, he said. And of course, I think Daniel Craig, of all of them, Connery was definitely a physical guy, big guy, but Craig is definitely the bluntest instrument, I think, of the Bonds.
Yeah, and I think what I love about Daniel Craig, and it begs the question, how do you go on from here? So, growing up with Roger Moore through Brosnan and, on through to Craig, he's complex in the way he's dealing with aging. I think, which we didn't see in a lot of the earlier Bonds. And I don't know, when he's finished and you go to a new Bond, do you try to continue that, which would impact who you cast as Bond, or do you just kind of, not ignore that, but not have it necessarily inform the ongoing character of James Bond? It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, it will be, and of course, there's also the debate about should the new Bond be a minority character. So the name Idris Elba has been bandied about. He's a bit old, perhaps, although he could carry on. Now, there's people who argue that Bond needs to be Caucasian to stay true to the character. And I heard a really interesting theory, and I'd like to get your take on this, Greg, is that James Bond is a code name. James Bond is not a singular person. It's a code name for the 007 agent. So it really doesn't matter. We've heard even, not Henry Cavill, Henry from, is it Crazy Rich Asians?
Oh.
We're both drawing a blank.
Yeah.
I want to, We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it- yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes.
But for sure.
But he's an Asian American. Again, Idris Elba, and there's been a lot of controversy about. No, absolutely not. They cannot be African American. They cannot be Asian American. And I say, why not?
Yeah. At this point, I think James Bond is not a singular person. There's certain characters that transcend the individual, and I think he's become more. And it's a whole almost ethos.
Henry Golding.
Ah,
Sorry, I have to.
yeah.
When I remember it.
But yeah, but that's a good point. You know, couldn't Idris Elba do the role? I think he could carry the James Bond swagger. I think he could. A lot of the characteristics that we associate with James Bond, I think he would easily, be able to pull off. And
Right.
And I think so I wouldn't have an issue with that at all.
I'd be curious to get our listeners' take on that. Maybe
Yeah, for
leave
sure.
it, post in our Facebook in the comments. What's your take? Does it matter? I as a lover of the books and a bit of a literary purist, I do like to see characters, or characters be cast that follow the author's intent. But I think when it comes to Bond, it's high time that we break the mold a little bit. And again, I said African American, Asian American. I believe that Henry Golding and Idris Elba are both British citizens. So,
Yeah.
But you get my drift. One way or the other, this the final film coming out October 8th of this year, 2021. No Time to Die will be Daniel Craig's last film. He's portrayed Bond in 4 films to date. Casino Royale, obviously, our theme for tonight. Quantum of Solace in 2008. Skyfall in 2012. Your favorite, and Spectre in 2015.
You know what I've always wondered is when I was a kid and Roger Moore was Bond, I don't remember Roger Moore being in any other films at that time that he was Bond. He could have been, for all I know. I have to look at IMDb. But I thought it was odd once you see Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig doing other films,
Right.
while they're portraying Bond. I'll have to go back and look at that, but I mean, Daniel Craig was phenomenal in Knives Out, and other,
Right. And Layer Cake actually was the 2004 film that got the attention of Barbara Broccoli, Cubby Broccoli's daughter, who's now the head of production. And it's a great film. Daniel Craig did a lot of stuff before he became Bond. It's just funny because Bond seems to have an impact on careers. And Sean Connery, an unknown before he was cast. And Daniel Craig initially actually rejected the part of Bond. He felt that the series had settled into a standard kind of formula, which I think it really had. A lot of explosions, a lot of sex, a lot of violence, and a lot of kind of just almost bizarre type characters. And I think Daniel Craig settled it right back down to earth as far as its realism goes.
I think that's part of the draw. Honestly.
Right.
It's not, cause it's the complexity, but it's the humanity that he brings to it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Bond. Craig is definitely a Bond with a past. He's dark, he's brooding, and he's very capable, obviously, with his fists. And we talked about blunt instruments, kind of whatever blunt instruments are lying around. The blonde hair did throw a lot of people, but he quickly grew on fans as really kind of a fresh take on an old character. He changed his mind on playing Bond after he read the script for Casino Royale, and there are claims that this is the closest to the novel, or any novel that any of the films really came to. Again, we mentioned before, Casino Royale also saw the return of Dame Judi Dench as the terse M, and foil to Bond's ego, always. She was the perfect foil. Brosnan was so pompous. She was so good, and Craig too, to an extent. He's definitely a brute in many ways, and Bond kind of settles him right down to the ground. But and also Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen, who many people have probably seen in Hannibal, played Le Chiffre, the private banker funding terrorists at a high-stake game of poker. It was actually Baccarat, chemin de fer in the book, so a little bit different game, but same drink.
Yeah.
And while we're at it.
Yeah, and that's one of the I think
That's
the
good.
challenges when you bring a book, especially one. I mean, how many years is that between the book and the movie? I mean, it's quite a number of years.
Yeah, 47,
So you need
16,
to
yeah,
make,
60 something.
You need to. It's one of the things we brought up with our guest on our podcast this week, Frank Ferrante, when we were talking about bringing Groucho Marx into modern days.
Right.
Do you need to change some things and modernize some things? In some cases, no. I think in the Groucho Marx case, no. But in Bond, when you're looking at a book where you might not have something like a game where people today might not be able to relate to it as much. You update that.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, kind of bringing Bond into the new century. Casino Royale, in many ways, broke a lot of the traditions and became the new Bond for definitely a new audience. So much of the Bond lore, I think, centers around, like we said, who you grew up with.
Yeah.
That's Bond. Connery people that's Bond.
Yep.
And you hear that maybe less or so about Dalton and Moore, but Brosnan, that was my era, and now Daniel Craig. This is the Gen Y, I guess, Bond. But Craig's the first actor to play Bond who is younger than the series. And Casino Royale was the first film to show Bond as a rookie in MI6. In all the other movies, he'd been a spy for a while. He was a little more experienced, and then it's also the first Bond film not to feature Moneypenny, which I don't think I even noticed. And I think that again, that was almost there was a bit of chauvinism there. There was a bit of misogyny in that relationship, and so I think by removing that, you did update things a little bit, and probably not a real important character to the plot. She is in the books, quite a bit, but it's, again, it's one less, taking away it's one fewer opportunity for that kind of, in an era when people are more sensitive to those type of misogynistic type situations in films.
And then when Moneypenny comes back, she's more independent. She's more a stronger personality. So that's definitely been a shift.
Right, and it also wasn't. She obviously wasn't the only woman to be removed. It was the first film since it was the first film since the first film. I guess I want to say that didn't include the customary titillating title sequence nude silhouette Bond girls dancing in the background. It was actually a conscious decision to leave the girls out in the opening credits because not for a concern about misogyny or objectification, because all those things in many degrees are part of the Bond mystique. But it was because the Bond persona hadn't been really effectively established until the end of the movie, because this obviously was our first installment, both in the paper version and the film version. So, and again, unlike its predecessors, the film does not open with the signature gun barrel motif. Though it's instead placed after the pre-title sequences. So lots of firsts. Craig became the first actor to be nominated for a BAFTA, the British Academy Awards, essentially, for playing James Bond, and the film received the most BAFTA nominations ever, totaling 9. So, previous record had been Goldeneye in '95 with 2, and The Spy Who Loved Me in '77.
So we talked about the kind of the Bond you grew up with is almost your favorite Bond, but there's also the music, theme songs. We were talking on the way over here. Associate producer Quinn, when he used to get dropped off at school, loved to have the James Bond theme played when we drop him off. I guess it was kind of his spy phase as a 5th grader or 4th grader, whichever. But there's always a theme, right?
Right.
And do you have a favorite? Bond theme?
Boy, probably Goldfinger.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Goldfinger. I mean, Gert Frobe was a fantastic villain. I love that movie. It's probably my favorite classic, probably my favorite Connery. Thunderball's good too, but yeah, I think Goldfinger is probably right up there. Casino Royale's a good one.
Yeah. Definitely.
Goldeneye is probably my favorite all-time Bond film, again, because it had the tie-in to the video game, and just I was that age, and every level was part of the movie, and Trevelyan's in there, and all the, it was just great. The Bond girls were just drop dead gorgeous in Goldeneye, and Pierce Brosnan is always going to kind of be the first guy I think of.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because as we talk about our favorite films, Skyfall might be my favorite Bond film. It's also my favorite theme.
Oh, interesting.
There's also, and some of it's what you grow up with. Live and Let Die, Paul McCartney.
Yes. Yeah.
View to a Kill, Duran Duran, I thought was a fantastic Madonna had her theme, and it goes on and on. I thought that
It reminds me of Mission Impossible. His Mission Impossible themes have changed throughout the years as well. I remember in Mission Impossible 2, the second Tom Cruise, Limp Bizkit did it.
Yeah.
And they actually did it justice. I was a teenager, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, again, Mission Impossible has that that kind of riff too, like James Bond.
Yep.
James
Yep.
Bond has a dun 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 dun,
Yep.
Mission Impossible is a dun dun dun. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting how these things tie together too.
Well, the film is rated PG-13. That's Casino Royale again, and runs 2 hours and 24 minutes. It's the third longest Bond film ever. The top two are also Craig films, interestingly enough. And I got a follow up comment on that as well. But Spectre, your favorite, was 2.5 hours, and then No Time to Die, again coming out this October, 2 hours and 43 minutes. Sir Roger Moore, we've talked about Roger Moore. He was reportedly so impressed with Casino Royale, he went right out and bought the DVD.
Really?
So yeah, that's pretty cool. But
I always wondered what the other Bonds think of, subsequent Bonds.
see, this would be the time to insert the Sean Connery impersonation, but I didn't prepare. I do want to make the argument that in the era of Amazon and Hulu and Netflix originals, when you read the books, they are a very muted, gray spy thriller. And I say gray because I think British, and I think a 12-episode Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy type themed retelling of a Bond novel would be incredible.
Yeah.
They're capers. They're just a good old-fashioned spy story. There's no torpedoes coming out of headlights. There's no headlights. There is very little gunplay. It's a spy story, and
that would be interesting to your point. Amazon's redoing Lord of the Rings as a series.
Yes.
It would be kind of an interesting thing to see. Now, would they have to get rights from, the Broccoli family or whichever for this?
I'm sure they could work something out.
Yeah, I mean it's Amazon, right?
Well, and Daniel Craig, he really threw himself into this role for a guy that really didn't want the role at first, didn't think he needed it. He read all of Ian Fleming's novels, which is an undertaking. I can attest to that. He talked to Mossad and British Secret Service agents. In fact, a few of these agents had served as advisors for the film Munich in 2005. He stopped smoking. He gained a ton of muscle. And speaking of which, the other reason that this film is remembered is, of course, the Speedo scene. When Craig, it's now iconic, this scene where he rises out of the sea in a pair of Speedos. I want to say they were light blue. I don't know. It burned into a lot of people's memories, not mine. But many of the crew on the film were actually out of camera range in boats fending off the paparazzi. Really? Trying to get those first shots of the Daniel Craig buns, I guess. So, and of course, no Bond film would be complete without a few scintillating car crashes. The car barrel roll stunt in Casino Royale it's by an Aston Martin DBS. It broke the world record for the most barrel rolls assisted by a cannon, and was officially entered in the Guinness Book of World Records on November 5th, 2006. But also, in one afternoon of shooting, 3 Aston Martin DB9 cars, valued at $300,000 each, were destroyed in the making of the film, in the car roll sequence. So, no time to die, I guess, if you're an Aston Martin. But, and let's not forget, before we get too far with this whole Casino Royale business, okay, we got the book, we got the '06 Daniel Craig movie. There's another manifestation of Casino Royale that exists, and I've seen it, and it is the 1967 spy spoof by Charles Feldman. Now, I don't know how many people have seen this, but it was definitely written. It was almost the original Austin Powers, I want to say. In this version of Casino Royale, an aging Sir James Bond, played by David Niven, who incidentally was Ian Fleming's first choice for the real Bond, I would have loved to have seen that, is coming out of retirement. Vesper Lind is played by Honey Rider, who in the first Bond film, Dr. No, is Ursula Andress, the actress, and none other than Orson Welles plays Le Chiffre.
That's awesome.
Right?
I'd love to see
yes, we need to get together and have a viewing party for that one. But it's very slapstick, but it also stars Peter Sellers, Woody Allen, William Holden, Deborah Kerr, and John Huston, and George Raft.
Boy.
It's on Amazon for like $3. So
cast.
it's big time,
yeah.
And it's just a crazy, funky, retelling. But anyway, the Vesper Martini was what we're drinking tonight. It's from the first novel. It's named after Vesper. Let's see here. Oh, I just lost my plate. Thank you, Vesper Lind. And I think I forgot to give the cast. I don't know where on my notes here, but
it's a pretty strong drink.
It is a little bit. My scroll finger's even off here. Anyway, the movie's available on Netflix, and come on down to the Bay Street Bistro Sunday, April 25th, and they're going to have the Vesper Martini on the menu, and last but not least, they're going to have a special menu for their Sunday supper based on not just Casino Royale, but James Bond films in general. So they're going to be offering Oyster Rockefeller from Diamonds Are Forever, fried mushrooms as a tribute to The Man with the Golden Gun, spring curry as a tribute to Goldfinger, and fig cake as a tribute to For Your Eyes Only. So all delicious. Come down, make a reservation, call early, get on their website. You can send an email, reservations@baystreetbistro.com, I believe. It'll all be in our show notes, of course, but things tend to sell out down here. So get a spot early, and then you can get home and watch the Oscars.
Yep.
And we're going to be covering the Oscars, obviously, next week. Greg's going to have his predictions up as the man with the Oscar. He's seen them all. I was trying to find a Bond tie in there. The man with the golden viewing
case. No time to sleep.
Right, no time to sleep. I love it. See, you're quick on that. So anyway, again, Oyster Rockefeller, fried mushrooms, spring curry, and fig cake. So come on.
Vesper Martini,
and of course the Vesper Martini, yes, which we can attest is quite strong, quite delicious. The lovely and talented Carla, as we mentioned before, the bartender here at the Bay Street Bistro, arguably one of the finest. No offense, but she's very talented. So come down and try her version of the Vesper, and maybe have an old fashioned to follow that up. You're going to enjoy yourself. It's a great spot here in Port Orchard, and we're having a great time down here.
Yeah,
so and we're in the VIP room. If anybody's interested, if you'd like to have a get-together, business meeting, small party, small gathering, shoot a podcast episode, just talk to Brady down here, the owner, and they can set you up.
It's a great spot.
It is. And Casino Royale, great movie, great series of books, great character. Cheers to 007, as however you know him. Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan.
Roger Moore.
All right. Cheers. Woo.